speak through Fox News and let the independents who are tuning into you, let them know what it is that she stands for, the principles behind her positions.
It used to be that new candidates were advised to brush up on the issues so they could handle questions from anyone, even tough questions. The idea behind that was that it prepared you also for actually governing. But now the advice to candidates is only to talk to sympathetic reporters.
We need clarity. We deserve answers, so we don't ask the same questions tomorrow.
Good night, Laura.
It all starts here in this perfectly ordinary suburban shopping center parking lot.
6 people are dead, 14 hurt, and a nation scarred.
31 shots fired, 6 dead, including a federal judge, 14 wounded, including a congresswoman shot through the head.
It's President Obama and Michelle Obama who will lead a moment of silence.
We're not out of the woods yet. We're slightly more optimistic.
22-year-old Jared Loughner.
The judge said he's a danger to the community and offered him to be held without bail.
Facing 5 federal counts, including murder and attempted assassination.
An envelope found at his house apparently naming Giffords as target for assassination.
Blame is spreading beyond the gunman.
Reopened criticism of the way Sarah Palin targeted Gabby Giffords.
We're on Sarah Palin's targeted list. There's consequences to that action.
When she had the crosshairs over different districts.
And didn't take it down until Saturday.
It seems to be Sarah Palin using gunplay language.
Don't retreat, instead reload.
I want people in Minnesota armed and dangerous.
She's absolutely right. That words have
consequences.
The community will hold its first mass tonight to mourn the victims of the shooting.
The president coming here, I think, means a lot to many members of this community.
There are, of course, other victims here recovering. And then, of course, the Congresswoman is still in critical condition.
She gave a thumbs up to her doctors and even reached for her breathing tube.
For the President of the United States to go to Arizona and focus not necessarily on guns or mental health, but the empty seat in that classroom, right? The empty chair at breakfast, that has impact.
Today starts the 6 funerals for those who were lost.
Those funeral services for little Christina, the 9-year-old.
This is a child born on 9/11.
Her biography is bookended by political violence.
We should do everything we can do to make sure this country lives up to our children's expectations.
On this first anniversary of last year's devastating earthquake in Haiti, before the memorial tonight at the University of Arizona, President Obama visited the hospital where more than a dozen victims of the Arizona shooting have been recovering. It was done in private with no media. The president visited Congresswoman Giffords, her husband, and 5 other patients, including 2 wounded congressional staffers. He also thanked doctors and nurses who cared for them as they arrived on Saturday. All of this on a day focused on the victims that began with a surprise from Sarah Palin.
We add our faith to yours that Representative Gabrielle Giffords and the other living victims of this tragedy will pull through.
President Obama tonight faces a high moment of challenge.
A memorial called Together We Thrive.
The day reserved for memorials for the victims and prayers for the survivors.
Members of Congress come together to honor the victims of...
Instead begins with Sarah Palin in defense of Sarah Palin.
And Sarah Palin is speaking out.
She is feeding the beast.
Today, when there's a memorial service,
Palin releases a scripted video statement with a clear message. Don't blame me.
Acts of monstrous criminality stand on their own, not with those who listen to talk radio.
Have you seen what Sarah Palin says? You know, she talks about don't retreat, reload. She says it like a pull toy that's broken.
When we take up our arms, we're talking about our vote.
What? She's also invoked a highly charged and offensive term to describe her own alleged victimhood. Brace yourself, a blood libel.
Within hours of a tragedy unfolding, journalists and pundits should not manufacture a blood libel.
And tonight on Hannity, my exclusive interview with former Alaska Governor Sartah Plain. Now, this is the governor's very first television appearance since the horrific shooting in Tucson that took the lives of 6 Americans and wounded more than a dozen others. She's here to respond to the political finger-pointing that took place in the aftermath of that tragedy and much, much more. And joining me tonight from Wasilla, Alaska, is Fox News contributor Governor Sartah Plain. Governor, welcome back.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you for the opportunity. This isn't about me. I was in my home here in Wasilla. I found out right away because when I started tuning in to hear, well, who did this? And names were not given, but I read my name in the reports, and then I read Rush Limbaugh, and then soon your name, Sean, and Mark Levin, and soon Tea Party Patriots, and soon the entire state of Arizona was being falsely accused of, and my response 4 days after, and I know that a lot of those on the left hate my message, and they'll do all that they can to stop me because they don't like the message, but they'll do what they can to destroy the message and the messenger. But we should not use an event like that in Arizona to stifle debate until evidence was presented that I believe proved that Tea Party Americans and innocent people that had nothing to do with the shooting should be falsely accused. When finally information was gathered, Sean, and then after those days I spoke, I was being accused then by these same networks and network reporters of interjecting myself into the story. And if you read back my statement of defense, it wasn't self-defense. I believe that in not every situation it's just going to be providence that sheds light on what the truth is. We have to do our part also. So in a situation like we have just faced in these last 8 days of being falsely accused of being accessory to murder, I and others need to make sure that we too are shedding light on truth. And I don't think that that was inappropriate. If it was going to cause much heartburn and even more controversy, I didn't have a problem with it being taken down. But I don't know if the Democrats have taken down theirs in these ensuing days. I know that it isn't about me personally, but it is about the message that I am not hesitant at all to spread across this country, and that is that our country is on the wrong track. I think the critics, again, were using anything that they could gather out of that statement. That was frustrating. I think the most frustrating part of this has been the accusation that I and others, upon responding to false accusations of being involved in murder, that we have interjected ourselves into the story. And Sean, let me share with your viewers a little secret about how the mainstream or the lamestream media actually works. That is why I was puzzled at first as to my thought it would be that the mainstream media would start accusing and using such a tragedy for what appeared to be right off the bat some political gain, or perhaps even left-leaning criminal who killed these innocents and injured so many. I didn't have a problem with it being taken down if in fact it actually has been taken down. In my response, I talked about my defense wasn't self-defense, it was defending those who were falsely accused. I appreciated those who understood what it is that I meant, that a group of people being falsely accused of having blood on their hands, that is what blood libel means. And just 2 days before I released my statement, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal had that term in its title, and that term has been used for eons, Sean. So again, it was part of that double standard thing, and goes back to, if it weren't for those double standards, what standards would they have, I suppose? They can't make us sit down and shut up. And if they ever were to succeed in doing that, then our republic will be destroyed. Not necessarily me being sat down and shut up, but having the voice of respectful dissent being shut up, that would destroy our republic. This isn't about me. I think the hypocrisy there is so glaring, and the double standards, reminds me that those on the left, if it weren't for their double standards, they'd have no standards. So it's almost really a waste of time to even address their hypocrisy. I think it's going to be very tough and I think even futile, really, to really start censoring everyone's speech and everyone's icons that perhaps they have used traditionally for decades in political races and political talk. And as I say, I believe that some of that will be futile. We hear now of this desire, this demand for civility and discussion when it comes to political debate. That's, I thought that wasn't the real hip thing to do. But, Sean, here's where I am personally on this. So, I will continue to speak out. They're not going to shut me up. So I call upon that and hold on to that and know that I don't have to be afraid. No matter what happens, I don't have to be afraid. But when we talk about the need for civil discourse and for the condemnation of violence that I believe we should all be believers in, then, when I hear those things coming from, I assume it is the left, then I know that perhaps they're not quite listening to, yes, what it is that the president just spoke of the other day.
Governor, what did you think of the president's speech the other night?
I agree with those who have said that the setting was a bit bizarre. It was kind of like a pep rally, kind of like a campaign stop, and that was unfortunate because that really did, the setting, distract away from the message. And the message is, as I preface my comments today with, lives were lost, people were injured, a crazed gunman that I and you and others had nothing to do with influencing him. He is the sole person, I believe, to blame in this. And I thought that the president hit on some of that, and that was appreciated.
More of our exclusive sit-down interview with former Alaska Governor Sartah Plain. Governor, when you finally released your video, not surprising, more controversy involving you, and I want to give you a chance to respond to this. One was the timing of the release of the video, which was, I believe, the day before the memorial, and the second one was the term, but especially within hours of the tragedy unfolding, journalists and pundits should not manufacture a blood libel that serves only to incite the very hatred and violence they purport to condemn. That is reprehensible. And, some of your critics saying you didn't know the historical significance. Other people criticize you for that phrase. But I want you to address the timing in that phrase.
I don't know how the heck they would know whether I did or didn't know the term blood libel. Nobody's ever asked me. And blood libel obviously means being falsely accused of having blood on your hands. And in this case, that's exactly what was going on. And yes, the historical knowledge that people have of the term blood libel, it goes back to the Jews who were falsely accused back in medieval European times of using the blood of children. The criticism of even the timing of this statement is being used as another diversion, because I believe that there are many on the left, many critics, who don't want, for instance, Congress to buckle down, get back to work. There's this trifecta thing going on in our country right now that's going to bring America to her knees if Congress doesn't start addressing the issues at hand. We have these things going on right now that have got to be addressed, and Congress has got to get back to work. And it's just much easier, I believe, for critics of a common sense conservative agenda to try to divert and distract from the issues at hand, those tasks that must be addressed today. I am not ready to make an announcement as to what my political future is going to be, but I'll tell you, Sean, I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to shut up. I'm going to hopefully be able to help empower others who believe that one of the things that makes America so exceptional is our right to free speech, is our right to vigorously debate ideas and intentions in this country. I'm going to continue down that path, and if that leads to being a candidate for a high office, then I will announce that at the appropriate time. But for now, I want to join others who are saying, no, peaceful dissent and discussion about ideas, that is what makes America exceptional, and we won't allow that to be stifled by a tragic event that happened in Arizona, but not to allow it to stifle debate in America.
Governor, almost from the second that you were on the national stage, you have been loved by many, and you've been a lightning rod in the public arena. When moments like this happen, do you ever find yourself saying to yourself, you know what, maybe I'm just going to stay in Wasilla, stay out of this big national debate? You ever have those moments of doubt, or perhaps feeling that you'd like the comfort of not having to deal with this all the time?
I'm thankful for the opportunity that I have to speak for many, and I will continue to do so. I feel very blessed to be in the position that I am, and I'll take the darts and the arrows because I know others have my back, and I have their back.
All right, Governor Palin, we really appreciate you being with us once again. Thanks for being on board, and we'll be talking, I'm sure, in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. But this BS coming from the lamestream media lately about us inciting violence. Don't let the conversation be diverted. Don't let a distraction like that get you off track. Keep fighting hard for these candidates who are
today,
all about
hundreds
the
of people gathered to say their
need.
final goodbyes to 9-year-old Christina Green, the youngest victim of Saturday's massacre in Tucson. She had gone to Gabby Gifford's Congress on Your Corner event to learn more about our democracy.